Hello and a really big warm welcome to this presentation from the Urban Penguin. My name is Andrew Mallett, and in today's presentation we're going to look a little bit at shell scripting and how you can make use of some of our basic commands in Linux to be able to validate correct entries. Let's say that we're building a script that needs to write to a configuration file. We want to make sure that the configuration keys that we supply are going to be valid for that configuration. We also need to make sure that they're going to be in the right case when we do our comparisons. So we're going to see some really neat stuff from the command line that we can use to get this up and running. Come on, let's find a command line. So a really big warm welcome through to the Pixel playground that makes up my Raspberry Pi. When we go through though and investigate this a little bit more using our hostname CTL, we can see then that it's Raspbian 10 or the Buster edition. To be honest though, it shouldn't really matter which Linux distribution you're using because we're looking at some pretty standard Linux tools as we go through teaching you how you can validate your inputs as if you were going to be writing new keys to a configuration file. We're going to say that we are working with our SSHD configuration, and obviously the configuration entries that we put in need to be correct. So we've got to look at how we can validate those entries. The method that we're going to use is SSHD minus uppercase T. To make sure that we can read everything, we're going to use sudo and SSHD and then the option uppercase T. This then prints all of the keys and their values. Now these values might be set in the configuration file or they might be default values, but we are seeing the valid key names as well as their values. Now to be able to isolate the keys from the key values, we're going to use awk. We're using awk because it becomes a very simple way because we don't need to specify the delimiter. The default delimiter in awk is our space. So all I need to do is pipe the output from SSHD minus uppercase T to awk and then in single quotes and brace brackets print $1 and then we get just the keys printing out. Now there are some keys that are duplicate, so we need to look at removing those duplicates because they are unnecessary, and that can be done simply with sort -u. So now we're getting a list of valid keys from our SSHD configuration, but we're only getting one occurrence of each key. Now it's all well and good having these values at the command line, but we need to store these valid entries, and we're going to do that within a bash array. We're creating an array called valid keys. Where we set the equals, it's followed immediately by our parentheses, indicating we are setting an array. The array is going to be set to the output of the previous commands that we looked for. So that's going to be $, open our parentheses again, and then add in our embedded command. So sudo SSHD -t awk print $1 and have that piped through to our sort -u. Now don't forget at the end we're going to have two closing parentheses to close off the encapsulated command as well as closing off the array. Now that we've set the array, we've got to work out how to read the array, because if I go simply and echo $valid_keys, we're going to get then the first entry or index 0. Now obviously we've got a lot more, so let's clear the screen. And when we now go through and look at echoing out the array, let's put the delimiters in place around the array name and add in our square brackets and the ampersand to indicate all entries. And you can see now that we're getting all entries from the array. Sticking working at the command line, we have to look at how we can convert the case, because our input value for a key is likely to be mixed case. Something like this with permit root login with the uppercase P, R and L. Now we have to compare that to a lowercase value, and that's going to be our problem that we're going to look at solving. Of course, when I go through and look at echoing my dollar key, we're going to see, of course, then it's stored in mixed case. We wouldn't expect anything else, would we? But look at this. If we go through and use our brace brackets as delimiters again, and if I put in a single comma and close the delimiter, we can see that we've converted the first character to lowercase. Now, that's not what we want. We want everything to be lowercase. If we want everything to be lowercase, we use the double comma. So we can see now everything is lowercase, and this becomes an easy way that we can go through and validate our input without affecting the underlying storage of our key variable. If I go through and look at our key variable is still stored in mixed case, but we're able to test it in different case versions. If we go through and take a look at it in all uppercase, we can see then the uppercase version. And if we wanted it to transpose case, so if I use the double tilde, then everything is converted to the opposite case. So we have these really useful tools that we're able to provide at the command line, our comma, caret and tilde to convert case. Now, having practiced a little bit of the command line, we know what we need to set within our script now. So I'm going to go through and using Vim, but you could use Nano. We're going to open up the sshd_set file. So this is a new file that we're creating, and we're going to put the shebang in so the system knows that this is a bash shell script file. Next up, we know to create the bash array. So we can keep it as valid_keys, and we can go through and assign it the value as an array. So open up our brace brackets, and then the output of our sudo sshd -t piped through to awk. We're using awk, remember, to pull out field number 1, so print $1. And because some keys are going to be duplicated, we want to make sure that we've got a unique list of values, so we can put sort space -u. And don't forget the double closing parentheses as we close off the encapsulated command and the array. We're going to set our key, the key that we want to set, to be the first input argument to the script, so $1. Ideally, we would also double check that we had provided that value. When we make a match, we're going to set a variable key _match to be true. We initiate it in this stage with a value of false. Now we can run round our for loop now as we start checking each entry of the array. So we can create a temporary variable, valid_t, inside of our array. And we can go through and put this to be our $, and then we know to reference our delimiters and our valid keys, square brackets, ampersand, so every entry in the array, close off the brace brackets, close off our quotes, and then we can enter our do loop. Within inside of our do loop, we're going to put an if statement. But you can see at the moment, the colour coding, the syntax highlighting isn't working for me. Now that we've put the shebang in place, if we shut the file down and open it up again, that shebang is going to set the syntax highlighting inside of Vim. So I can just save the changes I've done so far, then go back in, and things are going to work much easier, both from a colour point of view, as we can see everything clearly, but also from an indentation point of view. So within my if statement, remember, that's where we left off. We can then go through and start running our test. So we can go through and specify that our lowercase version of our input key is going to be equal to the current iteration of our valid key. So each key in the array is going to become our valid key, and we can test that. We can then go through and specify our then clause, and we can then set our key matched variable to be true. We've now hit a match, so this is a good thing. We don't have to check anything else within our for loop now, so we can use the break keyword, so we jump outside of our looping structure. Once we've hit a match, there's no point us searching anything more. We've probably got about 80 or 90 values inside of the array, so if we hit especially a match early on, we might as well jump out. We close off our if statement, and we close off our loop with done. Now, typically, we would be writing through to our configuration file now, but to keep this script relatively simple, we're just going to echo results back to the screen. The idea is we just want to learn to do the validation, and we can worry later about developing the script further. So we can now go through and check to see our key matched. If it is equal to a value of true, then obviously we've done a good job and we've provided a correct configuration key to the script. So we can go through then and echo out $key is valid, or whatever you want to do. And then we can also check for invalid keys by using the else statement. And we can go through then and echo out that the $key is, well, I presume invalid then. So we can go through and say that that's invalid, and then close off our if statement with the fee keyword, so fi, and we are done and dusted. There's our script. A script, hopefully, where we've learned quite a bit that we can play with, but let's test out that it's working. I haven't made it executable, so we can run it with bash. And if I set then the key value to be Bob, we can see that Bob is an invalid key, whereas we set it to a valid key name, permit root login, we can see then that comes back that that's a valid configuration key, but scrape off a little bit of the end of login and very quickly it becomes invalid. So we're able to see this working, and we've learned how we can print our key values by using SSHD minus uppercase T, and how we can convert to lowercase using our comma syntax inside of our brace brackets.
All that is left to say is thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed this, then you are probably sadder than I first thought. For more of this drivel, please subscribe, like and comment to @TheUrbanPenguin.